Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on this Thursday night. We have several developing stories as we come on the air, and we're going to begin tonight with the fallout from the grand jury decision in Louisville, Kentucky. No police officers charged in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor. One officer charged with wanton endangerment for recklessly firing into Breonna Taylor's neighbor's apartment. But tonight, her family asking, what about Breonna Taylor's safety, the bullets that hit her? And new questions tonight about why the officers came to her home that night in the first place.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Awakened Soul Podcast. I'm your host, CEO Haize. If you want to follow the podcast, you can do so at Awakened Soul Pod or at the Awakened Soul Pod. Just depending on what platform you're looking for. So you can also follow me personally at CEO Haize. We got another great show planned for you guys this week, as we do each and every week. I like to think that every week is planned to be great. If I execute it, I guess that's on me. But we're going to be talking a lot about current events, news, things like that. We also have the Cookie Chronicles from Tia, the First Lady, back in the building. And you know, the In the Mind of Haize segment, because that segment is typically where I do talk about things in the news and current events and stuff like that. It's going to be really long this time. It may actually be the meat of the episode, whereas, you know, that's usually the discussion topic. The discussion topic this week, we're actually just going to be reading some of the reactions, and I'm going to react to those reactions from our episode last week, which was the fall to grace, which was about me and my process of the things that I had to go through and the darkness that I had to work through to get to a place of grace. And, you know, if you haven't listened to that episode, I would suggest right now go back and listen to that one. That episode is very close to being our most downloaded episode outside of our Infinity War review episode, because that episode is, I think I honestly had one of the first Infinity War reviews out, like even with movie podcasts. I'm not even a movie podcast. And that episode did well over 10,000 downloads. So that was just huge for us at the time. But yeah, enough of that. So that's what we got planned for this week's episode. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of the Breonna Taylor case on this, and kind of talking about the idea of like what's going on with the police and why people are calling for police reform or defund the police, because I think it's starting to get a little misconstrued with people who are choosing not to pay attention to the reason why that's being asked for. So we're going to be talking about that on this week's episode.
Camera alone didn't fail her, but it ended with the lack of investigation failed her. The officer who told a lie to obtain a search warrant failed her. The judge who signed the search warrant failed her. The terrorist who broke down her door failed her. The system as a whole has failed her.
All right, so you guys heard that. That was a bit of a news clip from after what happened with the Breonna Taylor case. If those who don't know, the officer was not charged for a murder, more so for discharging the gun and the bullets. And once it came out that they were preparing for the reaction and fallout, once this announcement was made, the writing was kind of on the wall. We talked about this on the Breaks Radio. And so, unfortunately, this doesn't feel like justice. And it brings even more questions to the light when you think about the fact that they just want a settlement, a wrongful death settlement. So, it, you know, and I understand the people were saying that, you know, it was in the wrong. If it was found to be wrongful, then why isn't the cop that is the reason for the lawsuit being charged? I understand all those questions, and unfortunately, this just goes back to just kind of how this country works, how things in this country happen, and just a baseline of how this is normalcy for some people. How it just sucks, right? It sucks. And I understand all the frustration. Hearing her aunt make that statement, I think it just adds to the frustration and the upset and the hurtness that we feel as Black people. The fact that it's you know, the cops doing their thing is one thing, right? But then the fact that justice is not served, and we're going to be giving some statistics in this episode about just the history of cops being convicted in shootings and manslaughters and in charges and stuff like that as we talk about this. But I want to keep this first part really focused on the case of Breonna Taylor. So you heard that clip of her aunt reading that statement, and that's what a lot of people feel. And as a black man, I understand we can say protect our women all day, and that's something that we do need to do, and we need to do that from each other. But when you look at it, when it comes from the police and the fact that we just keep running into the same situations, and what kind of has really disgusted me over the course of this is the post where it's like people are now justifying her murder, or kind of throwing it back on blaming it on her. And one in particular, which lady actually posted to the Love Less Than Badass Soul Facebook group, and we had a discussion as a group based off that, in which the guy who made the post, I can't remember his name, just made a lot of false accusations, false statements in it, saying she was involved in her boyfriend's drug activity, and her boyfriend shot at the police first. And I think a big, huge misconception in this is that the boyfriend that is referenced in the case, right, the reason that they were coming to her house, is not the same boyfriend who was there that night that shot at the police. Those are two different people. That boyfriend actually said that he thought it was the ex coming into the house, and that's why he got the ex-boyfriend's last name is Glover, and then the current one who was there, his last name is Walker. And so there's a misconception going around that it was the same boyfriend, and that she was involved in Glover, the previous boyfriend's drug activities. He's even come out and said that she was not involved in the day-to-day. The reason why the warrant was out for her is because they thought he was having stuff delivered to her, or possibly holding money for her, which Glover, who's in custody, is kind of going back and forth on, but he said that she was not involved in the day-to-day. So the fact that that some people are trying to use the fact that she dealt with a man before who dealt drugs and was in that lifestyle as it being kind of on her why she lost her life. That's stupid, it's idiotic, and it's not the facts. And I think this is one of the problems that I've always said that I have with things, even in our culture, is that some people don't pay attention to the actual facts. They read a headline, they read a tweet, a news article, and then they take that as fact and then they run with it. And in this case, it's disgusting to see another black man, who would then see a black woman lost her life in her home where she should have been safe and sound, whether they had a warrant or not, to then try to sit there and say it's her fault because she knew the lifestyle she was getting into and dating a drug dealer, and just the amount of false information that was in that one post, and then to see that subsequently put out by more people as well, and have more people have this wrong notion that she was involved and she was not. And even with that being said, that still does not take away from the facts in this case. And that's what people don't read, the fucking facts. And if you're going to sit there and try to defend why a woman lost her life, you need to fucking have the facts. And I get disgusted with it. And I get people try to put it under being emotional or being triggered by police shootings. And like I said, we'll get into that aspect of things as well. But it's bullshit for anyone to try to justify, anyone, I don't care who you are, to try to justify the reason why this woman lost her life without you knowing the facts. Stop reading simple tweets or posts and not knowing what the fuck you're talking about. She had left that boyfriend. They were off and on, and she was done with him. She was actually with somebody new. So to sit there and try to justify that as a reason why, use that as justification for the reason why she lost her life, you're fucking idiotic and you're stupid and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So that's one thing. And it just frustrates me, and especially when we live in a country where police killings and shootings are so fucking common, that for somebody to try to justify that just doesn't fucking sit right with me. So if you're going to talk about, and I'm not even going to get into the fucking Charles Barkley bullshit, fuck that dude, but I'm not even going to get into anything else, right? I'm just going to keep it on the facts. She was not involved in drug activities. So there's been no evidence to point to that at all. Any claim that says, or anyone who's posting on social media that's saying she was involved is lying. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. The boyfriend who was involved in drug activities has denied it. There's been no evidence to point towards that at all. Yes, her name was on the warrant, but it was not because they thought that she was involved in the drug dealing activities. So let's get those facts straight. There's been no evidence linking her to any type of drug investigation with Glover other than having the suspicion that she may have been holding money for him, which what the warrant was for. As far as if it's been, it's up in air. There's been claims that have been on both sides, whether the police announced themselves or not. And so that is one of those gray areas in this case. But let's get into kind of the issue that I wanted to talk about mainly in the Mind of Haize segment, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about is that
Jonathan Farrell was unarmed when he died, just a month shy of his 25th birthday.
Now that officer, Randall Carrick, is charged with voluntary manslaughter.
A mistrial was declared in a case of a white police officer who shot and killed an unarmed black man. There were protests outside the court after the mistrial was announced Friday.
The father of 6 can be heard on the tape saying repeatedly,
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Prosecution. That's what this is all about.
Many people simply cannot understand why the grand jury did not indict when they could actually see video of what went down between that New York police officer and Eric Garner.
Michael Wilson will not be indicted.
It's the feeling among many of these people that black lives don't matter.
An officer shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice on Sunday.
Tamir Rice was playing with a pellet gun when officers arrived. One of them opened fire within 2 seconds.
There have been 121 cops who have faced manslaughter charges since 2005. In those 15 years, 44 of those cops were convicted. And usually those convictions were for lesser offenses. So they weren't actually convicted of manslaughter. They either pleaded down or they got lesser offenses. And 26 of the cases are still pending. So just think about that. So that's just a number of it. There's a 46% conviction rate. There's a 46% conviction rate for defendants who are charged with murder. And that's just generally, right? 7 officers have been convicted of murder, 12 of manslaughter, 5 of voluntary manslaughter, and 6 of involuntary manslaughter. And, you know, racial bias has been a point in this as well. And so when you hear those stats and you hear those, just those raw facts, it raises question to why people are so upset. Like, we understand, like, this is not something that's just popping up. For people who think that this is something that's just been blown out of proportion because of social media, because of things like that, aren't paying attention to the facts of what's happening in this country consistently. This is something that has been consistently happening for years. So when we're sitting back and and again, like I said, the defund the police thing, I think people are misconstruing defund the police with meaning get rid of the police. That's not what defund the police about. Defund the police, and this is part of the reason why, like always, Charles Barkley's comments are asinine and stupid, just to be fucking blunt. Is because defund the police isn't about getting rid of the police. So when you hear Charles Barkley say something like, well, who are black people going to call? Ghostbusters? They're still going to call the fucking police. Defund the police is about taking some of the money from that goes into funding police and putting into more things that help the community, like safety, more training, mental health, things like that also help keep our community safe. So when you hear defund the police, the police are not going to go away. Nobody would say that. And so if any of my listeners are thinking that that's what defund the police is about, I need everyone to wake the fuck up. It has nothing to do with getting rid of the police. Defund the police has more to do with putting that money and funding that money back into communities that need it, because the police aren't necessarily making people feel safe. It's not the police aren't the end all be all. So when you hear defund the police, it means take some of that funding away, not get rid of police as a whole. Like, this is another one of those things that we as a culture, we take sometimes, and we just run with these ideas without fucking researching it. Like, come on, we got to do better. And overall, in this case, and I took so much time because initially I wanted to record this segment right after the announcement came out that the police weren't being charged for her murder. Of course, we got riots breaking out all over the place again. That's going to happen, and this is one of the things that I say. And I kind of tweeted it out. Everyone who's saying that they can't wait for this year to be over, what's going to change? Are cops magically going to stop shooting us because it's 2021? Is COVID going to magically go away because it's 2021? And you guys know my stance. As much as I don't want it to happen, Trump is more than likely being reelected. That's not going anywhere in 2021, more than likely. Again, I hope to be proven wrong. I pray to be proven wrong on that one. The issues aren't going away. They're not just going to magically go away. We have to make changes. So when you hear people rallying around the idea of defund the police, it's because something needs to happen. Something needs to happen. We can't keep going. We lost a black woman again, another person who could have been who knows what. But the justice was not served in that case, regardless of where she was, if she dated a drug dealer, any of that. Let's stay focused on the fact that this woman lost her life when she should not have lost it. She should still be with her family. And so I can only say so much as a black man talking about this subject. So we're going to end this part of the In the Mind of Haize segment. We're going to split In the Mind of Haize into two different topics. Two different segments. We're going to end it on because as a black man, I can, like I said, I could only say so much. I think we need to hear from a black woman in this case. And I ran across a post, and a black woman talked about her feelings on it and asked her if I can play it on the podcast. So we're going to end this segment playing that clip. After that, take a brief break. We're going to get into the Cookie Chronicles segment because that kind of filters into the second part of the In the Mind of Haize segment. And then we'll be right back after this.
Why are we so hurt by what's going on with Breonna Taylor? Because what's happening with Breonna Taylor is the epitome of Black women's experiences in this country. Even when we are killed and dead and gone and buried under this ground, there is no justice for how we got there. People are not concerned about the impacts that this country has on our well-being and our existence. What happened to Breonna Taylor can happen to any Black woman in this country at any moment, and it is swept under the rug like dirt. To be Breonna Taylor means to be a Black woman in this country, to mean that your body and everything about you is criminalized, to mean what happened to you is your fault. There is no justice for Black women. We are never coddled or never given grace to exist in the ways that we want to. This is injustice at its finest, and it terrifies me.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.